Noah Basketball is our new presenting sponsor of our Coaching You podcast. Noah Basketball is a shot tracking and data company that has helped change how coaches and players perfect the game's most important skill, shooting. Noah is a data service provider that uses machine learning and the latest computer vision technology to provide real-time data and feedback to improve shooting accuracy and consistency for professional and amateur basketball players. Noah has now analyzed over 570 million shots from countless high school, hundreds of college teams, and 28 NBA franchises. The technology is simply amazing. Once the system has been installed, players will be able to get immediate feedback on their shooting arc, left and right positioning, depth, makes or misses, and makes the data available to players and coaches on your mobile device. For more information about how Noah can help your team, visit noahbasketball.com. Welcome to another Coaching You podcast with the coach Brendan Suhr, presented by Noah Basketball. A special treat. Joshua Medcalf, the incredible author of, Chop Wood, Carry Water, and 9 other books, has just come out with a new project. Absolutely incredible book. One of the very best things I've read in years, called Finish Empty: What Does It Look Like to Live a Truly Successful Life from a Deathbed Perspective. Don't at all get weirded out about that, the end of that title. It will be something that you will hold on to. It's a quick read, like all of his books, written in a great fable style that Joshua has. He and I have been friends for 10 years. We kind of put him on the map years ago in the sports world with Chop Wood. And he's just one of the most remarkable fellows I've ever met. He's brilliant, simply brilliant, so articulate. We do a nice long podcast here, and we did a longer one off the air, not recorded by accident. Just amazing. He's brilliant. He's fun, knowledgeable. You're going to walk away. Remember, every book that you read is a coaching book. This is one that's for personal growth as well as to help your team. Or if you're a corporate person, to help yourself as well as your team. He takes complex issues and simplifies the hell out of them. I love him to death. After a quick time out from our partners, we'll be back with the great Joshua Medcalf. We're thrilled to have our longtime partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball on board as sponsors of the Coaching You podcast. Dr. Dish machines are undoubtedly the most user-friendly and advanced machines in the world of basketball today. Dr. Dish has completely revolutionized and reimagined the shooting machine to provide the best solution on the market. Join top programs around the world like Duke, North Carolina, Florida, and countless others, and upgrade your shooting machine to Dr. Dish. Dr. Dish machines are the best way to increase purposeful reps in your program to get players better, faster, while tracking progress along the way. Dr. Dish provides so much more than just your standard shooting machines, with custom training, pro trainers, and coaches on demand, real-time and detailed analytics, and top-of-the-line drills and workouts. If you're looking to take your program to the next level, look no further than Dr. Dish for the best basketball training machine in the world. If you have an old machine that's just collecting dust in your gym, did you know that you can trade that in to Dr. Dish for up to $1,500 off and get a new dish? Make sure to give our friends at Dr. Dish a follow at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter and Instagram for great daily drills, workouts, tips, and inspiration. Or contact us at drdishbasketball.com. Don't forget to mention Coaching You or our podcast for $300 off your purchase. Coaches, are you looking to take your game preparation to the next level? Then Fast Model Sports is the perfect coaching software for you. With FastDraw, build an organized library of plays and drills and create professional playbooks to share with your players and staff. You can also download over 9,500 free plays and drills from our Playbank directly to your FastDraw account. Looking for a better way to build your scouting reports and want to include video? With FastScout, build custom scouting report templates to prepare your team best for each individual opponent. Plus, did you know with the latest updates from Fast Model Sports, you can now include video with your FastScout reports and share with your coaches and staff all within the FastScout mobile app. The combination of FastDraw and FastScout is by far the best way for you and your coaches to create winning game strategies and effectively communicate them to your team. Over 10,000 high school and youth coaches trust Fast Model Sports products to help their teams reach their goals. To order, go to fastmodelsports.com. Use code COACHINGU15 to get 15% off any FastDraw or FastScout products. Remember, go to fastmodelsports.com. Use code COACHINGU15 to get 15% off any FastDraw and FastScout products. All right, we're with my dear friend Joshua Medcalf. Joshua, long time since we've done one of these. We've done a couple before. Always one of the most insightful and entertaining guests. And welcome back, my brother. So great to see you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Coach. It is always a huge pleasure and honor to get to be with you. I've told 4 or 5 people today that I get to be with the man, the myth, the legend, Brendan Suhr. You guys put me on back in the day, and I became, a household name in basketball because of you guys. And I have never forgotten that. I have told thousands of people that the place I really got my start was on the Coaching You podcast. And it is always a huge gift to me when we get to spend time together and share stories and talk.
Well, I'm a big believer and always have been in all of your work. And in fairness, a dear friend of both of ours, John Gordon, was the one that said, you have to do this. He said, do me a favor. And I said, no, John, there's no favors. I said, and that's what friends do for each other. And you're one of the most popular people we've ever had on there. And so, but I use your material. I give you credit for it once, and then it's mine after that.
There you go.
That's my whole thing. No one steals from me. They just give me credit. Maybe they do once, maybe never. But when I got wind of a project you were working on, I reached out to you and I asked you to share it with me. And I got to tell you, let me just explain to our listeners who are coaches from all over the world, 160, 70 countries, but more importantly, business leaders, all kinds of great people that are, really making an impact on people. Yeah. And that's what you do every day. And when I took a look at your latest project, Finish Empty, what does it look like to live a truly successful life from a deathbed perspective? I wouldn't let my wife see it in case she was looking for the insurance policy, And I said to myself, oh, what the hell is he doing now? He's out in L.A. I hope he's not into some hallucinogenic shit. I don't know what the hell. And I'm telling you, I read it, and all I'll say, and I used to cry when Oprah would do a damn commercial. This is one of the most impactful things I've ever read. And it's changed my whole perspective on so many things. And I'm always out there speaking with not just corporations, but with teams and kids. This fits for everyone. And I just don't know how. You're the envy of someone like myself who, I don't know what the hell I do, but that just can come up with ideas that are so amazing and impactful for people. Tell me how you came up with this whole concept for this project. I just loved it.
Well, thank you so much. It when you text me after reading the first three chapters and you said that first chapter, how did you come up with that? And I was it was humbling and it was exciting because your enthusiasm for it really, it made me feel great about the project. And you you really sent me a message that day that I actually think I was in Europe when I got it, and I was just like, I think this book could be special because you're one of the 10 people whose, you know, whose opinions and things on these types of matters, they really matter to me because you're one of the first people to put me on. And so, I got really excited that we were going to have this conversation at one point because just of how excited you got over that first chapter. I watch a lot of Netflix dramas. I've always been very interested in drama, and as a kid, I would read a ton of John Grisham's books
Right.
and things like that. So, part of the inspiration I think was one of the Denzel Washington movies and kind of tweaked it off of that. But unfortunately for me and some of the people in the book, Dave Hilfman and Tanya Parr, the tragedies and the heartbreak and the loss, those are very real, and those are things that we have walked through together in the darkest of the darkest nights. And then, so the for some of the listeners that may not know some of my backstory, me having my baby brother and best friend drowned whenever I was 9 years old, and he was 2.5, and I was the one that pulled him out of the pool. And then losing two coaches to prison, and then my father getting diagnosed with terminal cancer when I was 21, and losing him right after my 23rd birthday. And then, Dave Hilfman losing his wife, Stacy, and Tanya Parr losing her best friend in the entire world of 34 years, in Benji Parr. And, so a lot of it was real life trauma that we'd been through and walked through. And I had quite a few people that read it and read early manuscripts and were part of the launch group. And they said, wow, this is brilliant writing. And I was like, it's actually not brilliant writing. These were actual conversations that took place that I just transcribed the conversations. And it's sometimes in these things, I think that the greatest stories are real life. And the reason why you cried as much as you cried when you read it, and cried again today rereading it, and why every time I read chapters to somebody, or even sometimes in just writing it, I cried, is because it's real. It comes from the depths of my soul. It comes from the real life pain. It is it is very, very real. It is autobiographical fiction. And and so because of that, it hits very differently for people. And then the kind of the backstory in terms of part of why I wrote the
Right.
book, and I took 9 years to write a sequel to Chop Wood, Carry Water, which is, arguably one of the most famous books in the world. And I used to say that, and I didn't really believe it. And then I met a guy that his father mentored Tony Robbins, and he got me thinking. And so Tony was very influential in my life, and I had gone to an Unleash the Power Within. And my mom always said that that was one of the things that kind of sparked the transformation in my life a long time ago. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to look up Tony Robbins' books. And Tony, at that time, I haven't done it since, that was probably 3 or 4 months ago. Tony didn't have a single book that outsells day to day Chop Wood, Carry Water. And that blew my mind. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that Chop Wood, Carry Water really has impacted and penetrated culture in such a deep way that it's outselling Tony Robbins books, like the best motivational speaker in the
Right.
world. And that's not even, that really doesn't have much to do with me because my other books don't do that. It just Chop Wood has captivated the culture, and especially sports culture and corporate culture, in ways that I never could have even imagined. The downside of what that has done for me personally is it I get messages every day. I love your book. And I'm like, well, I've written and published 10 books.
Hmm.
And and there are some people, I would say, that sometimes operate more transactionally, and that don't believe that people matter. They only believe that results matter, and they don't believe a lot of things that I believe at my core, that I believe starting out, and that I believed in the middle, and that I believe today. And they've taken Chop Wood, Carry Water, and they beat people over the head with it. And their heart posture, their mindset towards people is, at times, I would say it's distasteful, and at times it's disgusting and repulsive to me. And so there's only so much that I can do about that. The book is out there. I can't control how people use it or misuse it. And so I'd thought for a long time, okay, what can I do to try and help people really understand this? And that was part of the framework of coming up with, Akira was already, probably at the later stages of life whenever he was mentoring John in the first book in Chop Wood, Carry Water. And so it just felt very natural that he would be very close to death in this final book, and that he could kind of take John, who turned into Jonathan at the end of Chop Wood, he could take Jonathan through this kind of very short, almost Tuesdays with Maury journey of like, look, the success that that book has had is cool, but here's all the ways that it disgusts me that it gets misused, because this is not what I taught you. This is not how I
Wow.
trained you. And I know that you took what you learned and you were able to impact the entire world with it. But I want to make very clear before I die, there are certain things in certain ways that this book is being misused. And that was kind of the perspective that I took. Now, I know that it'll be very difficult to get this book in the same amount of people's hands that read Chop Wood, Carry Water, but I wanted to at least take responsibility for, okay, I want to flesh this out in a way where I'm not coming at people directly when they send me messages or they send me videos and things like that, and I just want to pull my hair out. But I can create a project that if they happen to come across it, and if they happen to read it, that they may go in the quiet of their own, house, and without, the confrontation of me one on one. And better than most people, my presence one on one can be very intense, whether I mean for it to or not.
Hmm.
But that they could maybe quietly change their mind. They could maybe quietly change their perspective. They could maybe quietly have a heart posture shift towards what it's really supposed to be about, instead of what maybe pop culture or some clip that they heard on ESPN or somebody taken out of context that they latched onto. Or just, most of the time it's just ego and self-interest and people trying to prove themselves. And then for some of them, once they get to that point and they realize, Naira Fields was like my little sister at UCLA, and she played for Team Canada, and Team Canada usually is going to lose to Team USA, right? Historically.
Sure.
But then one year, finally, I think it was her junior year, or in between sophomore and junior year, they won that summer. They'd won in, I can't remember which event it was, but they won gold. And I had told her so many times, winning gold will do nothing for you. You think because you keep getting silver, you think that gold's going to do something. It will never do that. It cannot. And I just remember the look on her face when she walked in the gym, and she knew exactly what I was going to say. And she was like, "You were right." And I was like, I know I'm right. It cannot do for you what you think that it is going to do. But until you experience that, sometimes it feels like, well, it's easy for you to say this, which is one of the things I hate the most when people say to me, oh, well, you're successful. Oh, well, because you have money. And I'm like, I was like this when I was in the closet of the gym. I was like this when I was sleeping in, in a homeless shelter and serving there. I was like this when I slept on Skid Row. Like, I've been this guy. You just see the success, quote unquote, now, but like, but I've the reason I believe the big reason why I have gotten to some of the places I've gotten to and the influence that I have today is because I've never allowed it to be about secondary things. It has always been about first things, sometimes at the uh, at the actual sacrifice of those secondary things. If I've always known I could make 10 times the amount of money that I make if I would tell people what they want to hear on stage. That's all I'd have to do. I am one of the most gifted orators around and have known that since I was 7 years old, winning preaching competitions. I have been trained to change the way people think. And so if I would just use that skill set and a Vanderbilt communications degree and trained by one of the best speech teachers in the world and John English at Vanderbilt, if I would just use that and tell people what they want to hear, oh, I'd make so much more money. But I won't do it because I can't do it. It doesn't sit right in my soul. And I truly do believe, like I wrote about in Finish Empty, what does it look like to live a truly successful life from a deathbed perspective, that because of the amount of death that I've been exposed to in my life, I know that the deathbed is coming, and that's what I really care about. I'm not super concerned with the stuff in the middle that I don't think is really going to matter at the end.
Joshua, one of the things that in I know you're a coach, because coaches take people where they can't take themselves, you know. And Chuck Daly, my coaching partner, used to say to me, Brendan, I read a great coaching book. I said, and he used to read all the novels that you're talking about. And I'm going, what do you mean you read a great coaching book? I read Good to Great. I said, Chuck, that's a business book. He said, no, every book I read is a coaching book. Mm-hmm. And so I read this, and it's a coaching book for me. The problem with the kids that I coach and the executives I coach and you coach is they all want just us to snap a finger and now they're healed. Now they're and the kids microwave. They just want they think that we come and speak to them for 30 minutes and their lives will change. That's why, when I'm coaching pro basketball for years, we practice for 8 months before we even have the playoffs. It's a daily thing. And yep. So this book was an example of living life every single day. And then all of a sudden you get disappointed at performance. And the message finally from Akira to Nakoma was not about your performance. It was about everything but that. And it freed her up to perform at a level of no other. That's the only tip I'm going to give to this incredible project. And to me, that's what moved me, because I said, shit, I've been teaching poorly for so many years now. Even though I believe that. I don't, it's because so many people in our business are transactional coaches. I'm a transformational coaches. And people get fired that are a lot of times transformational coaches because they didn't win enough. But I don't care about that. But I want to do right by the kids and the players. And that's why this was one of the best works I've ever seen, because this took the leap of now allowing people to perform at a level that had nothing to do with X's and O's.
Yeah.
Right? To me, it was so beautifully done. And also, when it's your time, if you do that every day, you can close your eyes at the end and know that you lived your life to the fullest.
Right. And I think that the thing that sometimes, I get thrown under the bus for, I'm like, don't get it twisted. Naira Fields knew that I wanted her held to the highest standards.
Sure.
I never wanted the bar lowered for her. But she also knew that I cared about her more than I cared about her performance. She knew that I loved and cared about her. And the kid that I trained first in the closet of the gym, Eric Sheets, he called me Dr. Pain. But 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 he never had fitness used as a punishment. I asked him the same question that I asked the kids in the housing projects in Watts. I said, do you want to get better or do you want to go home? Do you want to get better or do you want to go home? It's got to be your choice. I'm not going to force you to do this. But if we're going to do this, then we're going to do it really, really well, and we're going to do it to our fullest. Otherwise, let's go home. Don't waste my time. I don't need to be here. It's the same thing that I tell people that ask me about coaching. I'm like, look, again, don't get it twisted by a couple things you've read in my books. I am a very direct, I like colorful language. I am an intense human being, but you will always know that I'm in your corner, that I love you, that I care about you. I will love you hard, but I'm not going to lower the bar for you. I am going to do everything I can do to train and equip you to get over the bar. And ideally, and this is what a lot of people in coaching don't do, is I want to train you so well that you don't need me anymore. I don't want to be your crutch. I don't want to be this codependent person that you need in your life all the time and you have to talk to all the time. No, if I train you really well, after 6 months, a year, one of my close friends that I don't want to mention their name, he did a contract in the last 48 hours. And I was like, yes, I have finally trained him well enough that he doesn't need me, that he doesn't need me to write every contract for him. I've trained him well. I can step back. And that's what I want, is I want to train people to where I am not needed. If you have to be there, then that's just feeding your ego. And that's just, you're not really training and equipping people. You're just becoming their codependent crutch. But I want people to be trained and equipped well, and then they know that it's going to be into the fire and that we're going to get forged in fire. And that the hard way is usually the only way, and that the only way out is through. And I'm going to put them in situations, and I'm going to ask them to willingly step into situations that make them incredibly uncomfortable, that are incredibly tough, and that they may fail a lot, but that they're only going to figure out what's inside of them by being forged in the fire, not by participation trophies, not by soft, not by easy. They're going to be loved well. They're going to know that they matter as human beings, but we're not lowering the bar for anyone.
I know how you teach. And so one of the things that's so, I like your word twisted, old style coaching is not to use the word loved. My best players, my best clients, NBA players, black guys, all of them that I mentioned, including my son also, they end every conversation with me every day with, I love you, coach. Love you, man. Love you, dad. I think that's one of the most powerful things that we have now, is when men to men can express love for each other. Do you agree?
No, I agree. And I would say
genuine, authentically.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think there's some people that express the words, but I think when men can actually love each other and let their guard down enough to be vulnerable and go through hard stuff and share what's really going on, and let that guard down of like, yeah, no, this was tough. I mean, one of the most transformational things in my life, in my personal life, in my coaching life, was I now live here outside this window. It's dark, so I don't have that backdrop, but I live downtown San Diego. And it would probably have been around 10 years ago now. It's probably 29, 28. And I'd come down here for New Year's Eve with quite a few of my friends from my soccer team at Vanderbilt and then some others that were mixed into the group. And I end up getting into a couple different altercations, but the last of which I get knocked out. And the story that I tell and the way I'm able to tell the story, I I don't necessarily look like the bad guy, and I look like a little bit of a hero. And it's true. There was a guy that said a very racist, derogatory thing to one of my black friends, and I kind of stepped up and said something. But the the other part of the story is that I'd been in a couple altercations, and that was the last one. And I get knocked out. I have to go to the hospital that night because my buddies are like, I think you should go get checked out. And so when I told my client, and I only had one client at the time, he was playing professional soccer in Germany. When I told him that story, when I was vulnerable and opened up about that, he literally said, "Oh man, I'm so glad that happened." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, I don't mean I'm glad that you got knocked out. He was like, oftentimes whenever you talk, it just sounds like you're perfect and that you don't struggle with this stuff. And by sharing this story and being vulnerable about getting knocked out, it it makes me realize that you're on this journey with me. It
Mm-hmm.
actually feels more attainable. There was a coach, I don't know why her name just popped into my head, but Sherry Cole, that coached at the University of
Good,
Oklahoma for women's
good friend.
basketball.
Good
Yeah.
friend.
And you probably know her quote about grit, that she wants people that have grit, and she didn't necessarily mean like grittiness of that they can work through hard stuff, and that it was more like what I'm talking about, of like that they've been through stuff, that they've had failures, that they struggle, because then they're not as slippery, and you can act, there's something to hold on to. And when people look too perfect, when people look too clean, when people look like they don't have problems, it's very hard to have authentic, deep relationships with them, because every single human being struggles. But in certain cultures and in certain places and spaces, it's not acceptable to talk about your struggles or your shortcomings. And so we pretend like we have it all together. We pretend like everything is great. We pretend like everything's all good. It's all love, baby. And it's like, well, it's great when it is, and I'll be the first to tell people when things are good in my life. I've learned I need to articulate those things. But I also tell people when things are bad in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, no, it's not good. And so I think that authentic vulnerability, one of the things I talk to coaches about a lot, is like, when you mess up, you need to tell the people you lead, I messed up. You need to own it. You need to, especially like if I come in and I know that I've had a big shift in terms of how they think and how they want to act and how they want to coach and how they want to lead. I'm like, look, if you bring me in to speak to your team, there's a lot of people that are going to be looking at you like, you suck at this. And so if you don't take ownership of that and say, guys, look, this is a big issue for me, and I am trying to work and grow in these areas, and possibly even say, I may need you to hold me accountable, and say when I'm slipping back into old transactional patterns, I'm like, this isn't going to go very well. It's a little bit like I was with a basketball program, I think shortly after we had our Coaching You podcast, and I had explained, I don't believe in using fitness as a punishment. I don't know why we would psychologically condition something that's the most important thing that can close a gap between a good team and a bad team faster than anything. Why would we psychologically condition that into the people that we lead as a punishment? It should
Mm-hmm.
be something that we just do, and we should be the fittest team around, but it is never a punishment.
Right.
And so the next day, coach comes over to me and he's like, so what am I supposed to do? I 4 of these girls show up, late, and you say I can't use fitness as a punishment, but what am I supposed to do? Their shirts are untucked, they're late, and actually it was the shirts untucked part that really got him. And I kind of like looked around, and I was like, Coach, I don't mean to be disrespectful or rude, but can you look at you and your entire coaching staff? Every single one of them had their shirt untucked.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, look, having your shirt tucked in is not a big deal to me. I don't think that's a thing that we should be running over or being punished over. But I can tell you one thing. If you really believe in this, then you guys might want to tuck your shirts in. And how many times has this happened before that you've made them run for not having their shirts tucked in whenever you have your shirts untucked? Like,
Wow.
what are you talking about? And in that example, I think it so applies in leadership that when we're not authentically vulnerable, we think we're hiding stuff, but those that we lead, they see right through it. They know what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to say anything most of the time, but that doesn't change the fact that they're running and they're being punished for doing the exact same thing that you're doing. And so I think that authentic vulnerability just helps address a lot of the elephants in the room
Mm-hmm.
that don't get addressed. And that authentic vulnerability really allows us to connect deeper with people. And then because of that, it opens up so many more possibilities in the relationship and in terms of how accountable we can actually hold people, because they do know that we truly care about them and that we're on the journey with them.
Joshua, this is so powerful, this stuff. And you and I could probably do a Netflix docuseries on everything because I love everything about you and what you teach. But I feel like I'm getting the ultimate personal training tonight by doing this. But there's so many coaches all over the world, but mainly, you know, right now, North America, for instance, that need your training. How do people, and I love the name of your company, Train to Be Clutch. I've always loved that. Uh, as opposed to train to be choked, train to be choked. I hate that word choke. But tell us about, or tell our listeners if they want to, if they would love to try to have you, if they can afford you to come in and speak, or to get your books and stuff like that, where can they get those things, or any of your resources that you
Yeah,
have?
all the resources are available, book wise on Amazon. Half the books are available on Audible. Your amazing producer Zach would like
Yeah,
more of them to be on Audible, and there are some strategic things. I do think that it's more beneficial to
the
read a
reason
book than listen.
the reason that Zach wants them on Audible because he only works now 18 hours a day, and this way he can listen to it while he's still working. That's why
Yeah.
he's a very bright guy. Uh, but from Burn Your Goals, which is I loved it, obviously, but all the things. I just think, and we can follow you on Instagram. I know at Real Joshua Medcalf, and on Twitter, of course, at Joshua Medcalf. And then you have YouTube and stuff on Train Two, number two, the letter B B clutch. Train Two B clutch. I love that the way you do that. But man, I'll tell you what you do for folks is life changing, and I just all I can say is encourage you to keep going. You're impacting, and I like to say this to people like yourself. You're changing the world,
Thank
and
you.
it's one person at a time. I know you're like the old missionaries, right? You one person at a time, and then that one person tells another. But I'm so excited about your latest project, Finish Empty, and what does it look like to live on a truly. It's one of the most impactful things that I've read in years.
But
It
thank you, Coach.
it speaks to me now because I've had so much success in coaching, and so many of my clients think it's all about ball plays. It's all about this,
Hmm.
and really, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And not to again spoil the book, but it turned out the best performance of this great young athlete in this book had nothing to do with all that. It was her mindset, which I know is one of your biggest things of mindset of people. So praise my brother for what you do. I thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I'm gonna be the missionary leading the charge on this because it is awesome. We'll put all this stuff in our show notes for you. And again, Joshua, thank you again so much for sharing.
No, well, thank you so much for having me on, Brendan. Like I said, you are a legend. It is an honor. It is a privilege anytime we get to do this. I'm very grateful for it. And especially this new book, Finish Empty, What Does It Look Like to Live Life from a truly successful life from a deathbed perspective. It really it's one of those projects that it it was my heart and soul was poured into it in a way that I'm I'm excited because the people that have read it and continue to read it reach out and say what you said, that I cried, I laughed, it changed the way that I think about a lot of things, and that is what I do believe that I was put on this earth to do. And so anytime I have an opportunity to speak with you, it's a privilege, and I'm really grateful for our time together again tonight.
You're one of the best in the world at what you do, and I encourage you. You're going to do a trilogy maybe in a couple of years. I know to finish this up. Don't wait so damn long. All right, please. All right. So excited. I might die after reading this book, but I'll die fully empty. I will have finished empty, but damn it, do another book because I can't. I want to keep learning. So thank you again, Joshua. Again, brother.
Thank you.